Ahmaud Arbery's death is one of multiple flashpoints this year that made people question whether or not the foundation of America's justice system is equality or racism.
Protests for George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery are still happening all across the country.
Heated debate continues over the death of Ahmaud Arbery.
The reluctance to arrest the men that recorded themselves shooting Arbery put Georgia's legal system and the legitimacy of citizens' arrest laws at the center of that debate.
Citizens' arrest laws are state and local laws, and virtually every jurisdiction in the United States has them. And they go back to English common law. But the laws that we're particularly concerned about are what happened in Georgia, because it was specifically designed to control the Black population.
I think to truly understand the citizens' arrest laws in 2020, first it's important that we understand the state of Georgia in the year 1723. Georgia had the greatest number of plantations of any state, and literally slave labor was the foundation of Georgia's economy. There was a deliberate effort to start slave breeding. And so after a certain point of time, you looked around and then you had an enormous enslaved population that outnumbered the white plantation owners and their families.
Amid all of this, Georgia was also defending its right to enslave people and creating laws in line with that ideal through the newly created Confederate States of America.
Georgia laws were formally codified in 1861. And they were codified by a man named Thomas Cobb, who was a lawyer and slaveholder. This was the first formal codification of state common law in the United States, and it was also racist.
Thomas Cobb wasn't just any lawyer. He was the reporter for the Georgia Supreme Court, a co-founder of University of Georgia's law school, and a Confederate Congressman. But his biggest claim to fame is writing the book of record on why Black people would be better off enslaved.
Cobb argued, and this is a quote, "This inquiry into the physical, mental, and moral development of the Negro race seems to point them clearly as peculiarly fitted for a laborious class. Their moral character renders them happy, peaceful, contented, and cheerful in a status that would break the spirit and destroy the energies of the Caucasian or the Native American." Cobb's view on race, his racism, his defense of slavery are then written into the Georgia legal code.
The citizens' arrest law became a statute in 1863. And mind you, this was just after the Emancipation Proclamation. The South was in the throes of the Civil War. So you had law enforcement that was crumbling. You had the Confederate Army that was distressed. And then you had enslaved Africans who were starting to leave those plantations, those cash cows, and start to join the Union Army to actually fight against the South. And so this law empowered them to be able to restrain and in some cases even brutalize Africans who were no longer in their minds compliant.
But the codes also include that any Black person has to prove to the white person that they are free or that their movements have been authorized. So there's no presumption of innocence, there's a presumption of guilt.
The 13th Amendment freed everyone enslaved 3 years later and forced some of the laws to be rewritten. But for the most part, that just entailed redacting slavery from laws created by the Confederate Congress. Today's citizens' arrest law is the same one Thomas Cobb wrote 160 years ago.
Even though the anti-Black part is removed from the law, it is never removed from practice. It was specifically designed to control the Black population. And unfortunately, this empowered the Ku Klux Klan, white mobs, to essentially capture, arrest, and lynch African Americans. But these are not uncommon phenomenon.
During the Jim Crow era, citizens' arrest laws reinforced the racial hierarchy they were intended to uphold by providing cover for whites who were oppressing Blacks.
What people were able to do is take that law and say, we were just holding them. We don't know what happened, but somehow they ended up dead.
Representative Carl Gilliard authored a bill to repeal the citizens' arrest law, but his motivations for shepherding the bill are personal.
In 1957, before I was born, my oldest brother, Bud Levant, in Pembroke, Georgia, was mutilated. He was mutilated. He came down to Pembroke, and he was coming down there the weekend before he went to school to be an electrician. And he went to Pembroke, Georgia, and was mutilated. I'll make it even more personal. In 1968, my other brother was run off the road in Pembroke, Roy Stokes. He was killed. They're cold cases. Now, the legal part of it is that was business as usual in Pembroke, Georgia. So I realized as an African-American man in Georgia and in America, we still have work to do. We can't make it business as usual. In the case of citizen arrest, Ahmaud Arbery, it cannot be business as usual.
Why has it taken this long for Georgia to look at laws like the citizen's arrest law more critically?
Because it's uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable back then to bring up something like this. But when I got elected, I found out that I am now the day. I can't say the state is not doing their job. Carl is the day. We have the power of the pen, and we are legislators. And when the laws are not right, we're supposed to either strike those laws out by repeal or rewrite those laws to the effect of 2020 versus 1863.
Has there been pushback on your effort to repeal the citizen's arrest law?
No, because I'm pushing them. We've got Democrats and Republicans on the bill, and we found that from the Sheriff's Association, the lawyers, the trial lawyers, everyone's been giving the attention and said it does need to be repealed. It's just a question of how.
Representative Gilliard presented his bill to the Georgia House floor earlier this year and hopes to see it ratified next year. He's also working with lawmakers in other states to repeal their citizen's arrest laws.
I realize as an African-American man in Georgia and in America, we still have work to do. The eyes of the nation are on Georgia to move from civil rights to human rights. The eyes of the nation are on Georgia to move from what is to what ought to be. John Lewis said it best. It's good trouble. When you see something that is wrong, you stand up for what's right.